Hello, everyone. I'm Ronan Unchained, and welcome to Bottles and Bricks, a Last of Us podcast. I'm your host. Happy New Year to everybody. It's the first podcast of 2024. Hopefully, everybody had great to at least good holiday celebrations. But I know, Sam, yeah. But the new year is upon us. The new year is here, and should be an interesting one for any Last of Us fans to see what the hell is happening in both the world of television and video gaming. But we'll discuss a little bit down here in the road. But as always, my partner in crime in this podcast from the get-go, Samuel Leggett Jr. from Team
Hey,
DVS. Sam, how we doing, bro?
what's going on, y'all? What's going on? Let's talk about some Last of Us. It's been some juicy details that have come up, and now filming is about to begin. So let's
Mm-hmm.
do this thing.
But before we get into the filming of season 2, I want to first give a shout out because the main reason why I was just like, yo, we got to do something now, even though part 2 remaster is around the corner, is because, folks, the show for season 1 had been up for Emmys, and we know how it's going to be received, the reception and whatnot. I would hope the best for it, but you know how um, genre stuff goes. Sometimes they do give it love, sometimes they don't. But Sam, I was surprised to either wake up or just to go online and see that boom, the show. I almost said we won, like I was a part of it, but the show was nominated for 8 Emmys for main title design, prosthetic makeup, special visual effects in a season or movie, sound mixing, sound editing, picture editing, and guest actor and guest actress in a drama series that goes to both Nick Offerman and Storm Reed. Um, I was so happy that we got some love for that show. Um, and I was just like, okay, this is for me at least. It should have been more, but this is enough to be like, okay. Hopefully, come season 2, people are still interested in it. Know that it's an Emmy-winning show now,
Mhm.
and that it's and now in high regard either from those that are not fans. How did you feel about it? Seeing the wins.
I mean, so this is the thing. I hadn't seen the show since we've done Balls and Bricks. It feels like a lifetime ago, to be
Yeah,
honest. I mean, did we record that in March? When did we record that?
we recorded most of all that stuff in January, February, maybe at the beginning of March, but it had been almost 10 months at least.
That's insane. So it for me, it feels like a legit lifetime ago.
Yeah,
But make no mistake, like The Last of Us was and is one of the best shows of 2023. The production design was amazing. The
yeah,
costume and makeup design, amazingly immaculate. The acting across the board, even the guests. I mean, it wasn't a surprise to me. It was just kind of like, well, which guests are they going to pick? But
yeah.
I think they picked very strong performances. I'm proud for Nick. I'm proud for Storm. They were beyond deserving of it. I mean, Storm, she was like ecstatic. And the fact that Storm has been playing in a Emmy-worthy show, now she first getting her Emmy through one episode of a show.
Yeah.
And then even with Nick Offerman, like, I mean, been in some really great roles as well. But I mean, these 2 episodes were just so iconic that it's undeniable. You know what I mean? Like and the crazy thing is for 8 Emmys, and yet we haven't even got to the major Emmys yet. You know what
No,
I'm saying?
no.
And I salute HBO because I just got done looking at a series in the same exact vein, and I think it's going to happen all over again. And I'm talking about True Detective Night Country.
That's
I,
right.
I, I can't tell you guys anything more, but make sure you watch it. It's amazing. So from a production standpoint, like they're going back for back. Like they have not missed a step. But The Last of Us, like when thinking about it again, it's just so amazing. I think we went through that series like 4 times roughly. Like we watched it the first time. We watched it again as it was televised. We watched it again for a spoiler discussion. And I think I watched it again a 4th time with my wife because she loved it. She didn't know anything about the game. We
Yeah.
were talking about it today. She's like, "Oh man, that show was so great. When's the next season coming?" And I was like,
We gotta wait.
"We find out." Good, but
I I'm pretty sure I'm up to your number 4 or maybe 5 because I know that I gave it another run. I don't know the whole thing, but when the Blu-ray came out, I was like, okay, let's see how it feels now. If I watch a few of them back to back, and it still has its kick. It's a unique thing doing a semi binge. I know some friends of ours did a binge, and we were like, wow, that's a lot. Okay, I mean, we recommend week to week things because it's just better to take in organically. But I I feel, and this is what's trippy to me is that the two people who won the Emmys in the acting department for those two roles, I would argue that those are the more deep cut things about the game and the story that like those are the fan favorite elements of it. They're not the main story. And the fact that people who weren't you know interested into the game or itself were like, all right, yeah, these two characters that we don't really interact with that much, and yet both episodes just hit the chord of pop culture. And it's weird because even from the teaser, when we were covering the teasers and the trailers that dropped up, and just seeing shots, we're like, oh, that's Bill, that's Riley. How is that gonna go down? How are they gonna use the Bill's town? How are they gonna use the Left Behind stuff? And it was just executed at what I had been saying from the get go. Best case scenario for adaptation.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff might have been cut. Most of the stuff might have been cut if done otherwise in a movie or other show or other creators behind it. But I'm just, and it's weird. I'm not trying to brag, but because I own Riley's first appearance in the comic book page, I own that. I'm like, I'm just happy for Storm Reed, and I'm also happy for the actors who brought Riley to life because I'm like, now that's engraved to be like that character, and that happened in that show is engraved in Emmy royalty. And same goes with Bill. With again, how people felt about that episode, but yet across the board, people were like, "This is a hell of an episode," and people have been saying it's one of the best episodes in TV history. And I remember the funniest thing one of us quoted. It was probably you or me that we were like, "Just to let you know, Bill and Frank's episode, that's as good as it's gonna get. That's as happy as it's gonna get. It's gonna get worse for everybody else."
Dude, it was some emotional times, so there's no telling. Shameless plug for this one, you guys. If you have not owned or do not own the Blu-ray or the 4K, it is on sale half off right now at Amazon.
Mhm.
I don't have stock in Amazon. I'm just telling you guys, if you want physical copies, I'm all about representation for physical copies, especially because Best Buy is removing it. And if it wasn't for Amazon, we wouldn't even have any chance for it. So if you want to continue that trend, this is something you want to own. Down the same veins of Breaking Bad and True Detective season 1 and others, you should cop this if you can. It's $26 right now on sale.
I'm so glad you brought up the physical media thing because yes, folks, a lot, and I'm grateful that HBO and Max are doing these shows, but at the same time, as fans, if we don't want to use Wi-Fi the whole time, if you want to just use physical media, boom, we could pop it in. Folks, physical media is sadly a dying art form, and it should be preserved. The special features should be preserved. And I am, I'm not, it's not a PSA for anybody, but I'm just letting you know that like go get it if you can because it's worthy of being collectible. I'm telling you this right now, dude. When I saw the Yellowstone prequels, like 1883 or 1923, and I love them so much, I was like, they're worth getting on Blu-ray, even though I know I can just click and then see it on my TV just like that with Wi-Fi. So Last of Us is on that level, as you said about Breaking Bad. For me, Game of Thrones, people might be like, "What, really?" And it's just like, folks, you have to understand, this is a story in game that yeah, folks might say, "Oh, we've seen the story before, one not," but we had never seen it done that way in gaming, and yet for the longest, people weren't sure if it was adaptable. Like it was too big of a thing to do on TV, on movie. And the fact that from my opinion, the correct people involved came together
Mm-hmm.
and brought it to life. And I know some of us were still like, the game is better, and I agree with in terms that I'm like, but there's a lot of other people in this world that would never pick up a dual shock controller.
It would
They just would
never
never do it.
wouldn't
And
do it.
now they can experience these characters and this story in another medium, and by people who for the best part, brought the souls of the characters as good as can get. Maybe different angles and point of views, but they nailed it. For I think speak for both of us that they nailed it across the board of just like getting the vibe and what is what is magical about that game and what that story and those characters.
Yeah, I mean, I only know of one person that didn't play the game when it first kind of came out, and I had to literally convince him to go, and like he was like, "I'm not buying this game to play it. I don't have time to play the game," and so he watched it on YouTube with all the cutscenes and through the playthrough. And I'm talking about Jarrell's Alexander, and part of that is because he was so jaded from The Walking Dead. He watched it and it ended up becoming like a masterpiece to him. And then the reason why I had him watch it because I was like, "Hey, I'm about to go and do a playthrough of the second game," and he was like, "Okay, it can't get worse." And I was like, "Hold my beer and keep going because I'm telling you." And so he watched it, and then he was like, "This is another masterpiece."
Mm.
And so then when the show was coming out, he was so scared and back and forth beyond himself. But again, my wife wouldn't have sat there and gone and looked through cutscenes of a video game to
Yeah.
maybe possibly think of this as a masterpiece. It was the show. It
Yeah.
was executed well enough for normal casual viewers and for those that are gamer enthusiasts to say they did their freaking thing. It's just it's one of the best shows, period. I think that's the thing. I mean, this is as good as like what HBO did with Watchmen. That was something that not only couldn't be adaptable, but why would you make a sequel to Watchmen? But they
Yes.
did that freaking thing, and it was phenomenal, even though it was one season. So, and I'm gonna keep.
No, that's all good. I think what I'm gonna bring up now is what we can hope and expect for Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. Um, oh man, I know this is gonna be something that heavy to talk about. I know I'm gonna do my best to cover it on my channel, either via playthrough or just trying to play it again. For those who don't know, I haven't touched that game since it came out. Like I finished it and I tried again, and like halfway through it, I couldn't do it again. It was too much of a burden. I'm gonna say burden. It's too much of a thing to me to be like I can't go through it again. That's 26, 27 hours that I'm like I can't. It's too much. And I know Sam, I know Jarrell, and others being like, Ronan, you gotta come to terms with it. I'm like, I come to terms with it already. It's just that it's something that is not revisitable to me that often, and people would be like, it's a fair point given the circumstances of what it's tackling, but they are doing a remastered version for it. I don't know if we ever talked about this, Sam, but I'm in that mind. I'm like, what do you need to remaster? The game looks stupendous already. Like you can see the improvements from when 2013's Last of Us to the remaster version popped up. The frame rate going faster and whatnot. Um, I don't know what they could improve on part two. That's already from technical point of view has already been at the forefront. That even when I criticize the game, I always say, listen, that fucking game looks stupendous, and from the tech stuff, it's next level. The only thing I could think of right now that has been the only reason why I'm even like engaging with the remastered version is that there's lost levels.
Oh, I thought
And
you were
I'm
gonna say survival mode. But go ahead, keep going.
no, no, and I'm interested to see if those lost levels add anything to it, or if they're just eye candy, or you know, again, I'm not gonna be one of those people be like fuck this, whatnot. But I'm like, at the end of it, when I finish playing it, I'm gonna be like, was it worthy of full price, or should have been DLC? Because we never got DLC for it. For the first game we did, which is Left Behind, but we never got DLC for part two.
So let me quickly not interject, but I'm gonna say something.
Yes.
A lot of you guys don't know this, hopefully you're watching this before it actually is available. If you have The Last of Us 2 on PlayStation 4 If you wait the day of the release of the remaster, you're only going to have to pay $10 to get the remaster.
Right.
Right now, if you purchase it right now and try to pre-order it, it's $49.99. You don't have to do that. I don't know why they don't just make that so. And they, in my opinion, it was kind of a shifty thing to kind of do. I kind of put a post about it on X, and then they kind of just made a post yesterday like, oh, okay, you can kind of wait until the day of release, and you only pay $10. For $10 to be able to revisit it, I think that is more than worthy of the price. But I think it's different for me too, though. In my personal opinion, The Last of Us 2 not only is one of the most bone-shakingly cinematic, dramatic stories I've ever experienced, because it's an experience. It's not something like you play. You're actually experiencing all this trauma, unfortunately. But the gameplay is some of the best gameplay I've ever played in any game, from a third-person standpoint. So when they talked about like the survival mode, I was like, dude, I could probably play that for hours and hours. The other thing about it is that when I played The Last of Us 2, I can't remember if I had a PlayStation Pro or not. I think I had a PlayStation Pro. And I was like, I've got to get a PlayStation 5. I got to get a PlayStation 5 because I'm getting prepared. I was thinking that they were going to have The Last of Us 3 like sometime around this time by now. And I am intrigued to see what graphically it looks like, what improvements they make from a fluid standpoint, because PlayStation 5 is very powerful. So on top of paying only $10 to do the upgrade, playing it on PlayStation 5 from a functionality standpoint is going to be intense. And I mean, the lost levels, I'm intrigued by. I'm not putting all my eggs in that basket. I think I'm more thrilled with playing through the gameplay again in survival mode and seeing graphically what they do with the frame rates of something that was already masterfully done. So that's the thing that's enticing me for it. But I was gonna post something to you, Ronan. I'll say this live right now because we didn't have this conversation. If you want to, we can play it together. Same time. We can go through each night. You tell me how many hours you want to kind of go in, and we deal with our trauma together. Heck, we can do it on Twitch. Like I'll play one on Twitch, you play yours, and we'll have side by side, and we'll go through the joint together.
I might consider that.
Because I think is even when I played the second game, the first time, I did it with Ty. Like Ty didn't get the game; he was just watching me, and I was like, "Oh my god!" And he's like, "It's gonna be okay, Sam. Just keep playing, just keep playing." I was like, "But they freaking murdered a little girl. Just keep playing, Sam. Just keep playing." As I'm sitting there slaughtering people, he was like, "Sam, you're going off the deep end." I was like, "I don't care. They freaking went the wrong route." And so yeah, I think that it may be better for to have an experience going through with somebody else. So I don't know. Just let me know. Let me know what you think. I'm gonna pay the $10 to do that. So yeah.
I'm considering whether to do with $10 or again because of physical media to buy it again, and that's the thing that I want. That because at first it was like this feels like a Lord of the Rings thing where it's like the standard edition and then the extended edition and then the Blu-ray standard edition and Blu-ray extended edition.
Hold on.
Oh, here we go. Yeah. You're a madman. Oh my god.
Look, the thing about this is that I don't even have to take these out the box because it gave me the digital for 4K. Initially it didn't advertise that each one of the digital copies would be 4K.
Yeah.
So I hadn't even had to take it out the box. These are still in pristine condition. If I had thought about it, I probably wouldn't even take it out the plastic. Straight up. Like I needed this physical media. I needed it. I'm not gonna buy any other after this. I don't care if James Cameron comes up with the 3D version of this. I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, well, I'll consider that. I'll say that live. I'll consider doing the team up. We might do what we did for the live coverage of the show. We might do that for the game. And just not a self-indulgence, folks, but just also through the events that I went to this past year. About The Last of Us, I've met many friends, people who are in social media and whatnot. So The people that you saw last year on this podcast, more or less, you'll be getting them back in this year, covering stuff whenever we do get new stuff concerning the franchise, and also be ready for new people being involved because I met some extraordinary people, and there's a lot of us out there that are hardcore fans, and I can't wait to see how we all bounce off one another interaction wise and where we come from, and if people like a game or the show better or the comic book better and whatnot. So I'm pumped for that. In the meantime, I don't want to dive too much into the spoiler realm of part two because again, it's gonna be. I talked this to Omni Media about this. It's gonna be hard to cover in part two without trying to spoil stuff with folks, just because it's a bigger game than the first one, and it's a more emotional, heavier thing than the first one. So I don't know how we're gonna do that, but I do want to bring up something, and I think you showed me some photos of it, Sam. Um, I'm gonna show this one image of first the game, and then of one of the actresses or actors of the show, and see what they're up to right now, just to give a little notion to folks to get ready of what's happening. So, you see this photo of Ellie, all innocent 14-year-old kid, right? And then you get an image like this, and it's not a 14-year-old kid anymore, 19-year-old kid. And just I'm already getting emotional just seeing this image. That's how, again, folks, that's how hard it is to me to think about part two. Even the music is hard to listen to, much as I love it. But I'm going to show you this image that I did see early on, and that's the great Bella Ramsey, just working out at the gym and whatnot, prepping stuff for what we can only assume is season 2 shooting. Because just to give a little knowledge of it, for season 1 they shot it for almost a whole year. They took their sweet time with an episode for per month, I believe is what Troy Baker had said. So they're trying to get it right, and we can only presume what they're gonna do with season 2 involving the second game. But know this, that by the time you meet Ellie in the second game, the little kid that we came to love, we came to protect, she's in another realm. That it's another. I don't even want to say the word beast, but it's just another.
Oh no, that's the perfect word.
Yeah,
That's the perfect word.
it's
She's
another
absolute pound. She's a whole pound. That's what it is.
Yeah. Sam, you seen this? Her putting the gym. Immediately, I knew where I imagined the levels, the cutscenes, and I'm like, okay, this might mean that it's gonna be at this point in the game, and da 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 da. How do you feel about that? Like, I'm glad because I know how much it was cold as hell when they were shooting the first season. But how do you feel about that? Are you ready for what we're gonna get with considering part two, or are you like, yeah, let's get in, let's do it?
The thirst is
Perfect.
real. I'm ready.
Perfect.
Freaking ready, bro. I mean, first off, bro, Bella Ramsey is a whole pound as an actress herself. And the thing about it, and this is what I said, like the gameplay for The Last of Us 2 is some of the best gameplay I've ever played in any game. It is so mechanical, yet so fluid and so natural. Like it doesn't play like a game. You're like going off the balls of your feet at any moment. Like you could be in pitch black and you don't know what's coming at you and you have to just react. And so from a physicality standpoint, it is way more detrimental. It's way more dangerous. Ellie is put in through so many different obstacles, emotionally, physically, and psychologically, that she's, I mean, yeah, the training is going to be essential for this. It's just going to be really interesting to see how they handle translation of some of the gameplay elements to second season, because I mean they've already said it. I mean Neil already said it. that this is going to be a little bit more on the gameplay lines of how they're going to handle it. Heck, we might be throwing some bricks. Might be throwing some bottles.
Finally, dude.
But
You should have seen me. Shout out to Chainsaw Reacts and his Council of Creators streams. You should have seen me when I brought it up, and Omni was like, "Hey man, I'd like to see somebody throwing bottles and bricks," and I was just like, "Dude, we have been calling for this since we saw the first season, and it's not a detrimental thing about telling a story and action wise. It's like it's something as simple instead of using a bullet or a knife, you just throw a brick or a bottle at someone or in a general direction, and it helps you in more than one way. And I hope they do that for season two. Um, I agree with what you said about the notion of action that much like John Wick, much like Old Boy, much like all these great action films, that the action should be also be able to tell a story instead of just people performing a scene in a room and whatnot. That's how visceral the second game is, and how much we hope they nail with it. It is, it is. Let's just say that the community we get from Jackson in season one, the globe of it isn't spread out longer, and the unknown is going to be hitting our characters along the way. And I I expect a bow and arrow this time. I expect shotguns. Um, I yeah, man.
oh, that was what I was going to ask you. Are we
Yes,
going to talk about a certain character that's got to be casted that may have already been casted? I think it's almost confirmed.
almost confirmed. Not through HBO Naughty Dog or Neo or Craig, but you know what? Let's talk about it. But I'm also gonna throw out the spoiler thing for folks here and now. I'm gonna do this. So, folks, yeah, just look at those shots. Just it's gonna be a lot. Folks, this is what's gonna happen over. I think you tell me if I'm wrong. You can tell me if I'm wrong. That throughout this year, and when season two comes around, we're gonna have to do almost twice the amount of podcast, or twice the amount of time and length in a podcast, just to talk for general audiences who have never experienced the game, and also to people who have played the game, to be like, we have to talk about it. There's no way around it. We could space it off here and there for people who haven't experienced the second game, but we have to talk about, like, okay, what does this mean when this character shows up, when this location shows up, when this line of dialogue appears? What does that indicate where we are in season two? And
Yeah, I think we're going to be able to talk around this without spoiling it. I really do. I really think we're going to be able to talk around this without spoiling it. But yes.
You want to take the lead?
Yeah, sure. So, if you've seen this actress recently, Caitlin Dever,
Yes.
she was in a movie called No One Will Save You.
Yes.
She's a really good actress. She can play the emotional side. And then if you've seen this movie from a physicality standpoint, she can also play action very well with little to no dialogue. And I kind of was like, if she's gonna possibly be Abby, Abby is pivotal and intricate to this season 2/season 3. And of course, if you played the second game, she is one of the secondary primary characters, whether you like that or not. Now, she is very connected to Ellie. She's very connected to Joel. And it all comes to a very big explosion. That's the best thing I can kind of say without spoiling it. But she has to be casted and she has to be in season 2, no matter what. The question was always going to be when they were going to add her in and who they were going to cast for her. Now, my question to you, without spoiling or tiptoeing around certain things, because of kind of who she is, and again, we don't know if they're going to play it like how the game is, where it's non-linear. If they go linear, we could immediately see her. The next shot could be her, without spoiling too much. And then we kind of go down that road. and that might service the story better, honestly, because then you have time to breathe as to why she has to be in this. But then the other kind of question I was going to ask you is that, how do they sculpt such a really big character? Not just from a physicality standpoint, but from the emotional backlash that everybody that played the game, because my wife has no vendetta against Abby. She doesn't know anything about Abby, right? And matter of fact, she might be more empathetic depending on how they tell the story. I think
Yeah.
that's gonna be the crazy thing. There's gonna be gamers. It's like manga readers versus anime people. And manga readers like, no, you don't like that character because X, Y, Z, X was good. And anime people are like, I'm just enjoying the ride. I feel like that's what's gonna happen. But go ahead. I'll let
Bro,
you. That's how I phrased it.
bro, not even just that. It's gonna be how people liked or did not like the ending of the season. There's a lot of friends of ours who played the game, the first one, and did not like how stuff went down at the end. And when part two came about, they liked how part two went about. There's a lot of us, including me, that loved how the first game, first season ended, that are not weren't crazy about how stuff happened in part two. Um, I'm gonna get this out of the way. So this is the character in the game, part two. Folks, I'm gonna say this because this show is my baby, and Sam is my compadre. We are not about, if we don't like something, we're gonna attack the people personally. We're not gonna throw insults at them and threaten them and their family and all that. That is not my style. Um, I was kind of ashamed of the fan base when stuff like that happened in when the part two came out, and the great Laura Bailey, who played Abby in the game, got so much stuff when that game came out, and my heart went out to her. It was a weird thing for me because I was just like, the whole time I was just like, Abby, I'm coming for you, but at the same time I was like, Laura, I'm trying to, sending you hugs from my home because you don't deserve this BS. Abby deserves it for a certain point. She deserves it, but and not even all of that animosity, constructive criticism, animosity. Um, so my heart went out to the people who involved with it. So I can only say is that and this is weird because again, it's gonna be might be a year or two before we see the season two, but if we get Abby immediately in season two, even a little bit of it, and if Caitlin Dever is playing her, first time, if we ever get a chance to meet her, I just want to. And if she is again playing Ivy, I just be like, "Can I give you a hug?" And hopefully she's not afraid of it, freaked out of it. I'm just like, "Listen, if you're playing Abby, you're in a world of hurt. A storm is coming your way, but know this: even though I'm mixed on the character, none of that is on you. None of that should be on you." And yeah, man, yeah. Even that, it's a lot to say. And what's weird, and I talked to you about this before, this image of Abby, that's from the first time we ever saw this image was from one of the trailers, one of the very first trailers for part two. And it's a cutscene. And I was just like, we were all saying, is that Ellie's mom? I remember being pumped to play her. I was like, that's so cool. Okay, new character. I'm pumped. And then the game dropped, and I'm like, I'm coming for you, motherfucker. Like I'm gonna destroy you. It's you and me. We're gonna go down in the sunset, dual spaghetti western style. One of us is going down. Um, it's gonna be a lot for this fan base. I'm worried, dude. Just for the reception, the actors who might be playing her. And hopefully we can do a good enough job to offer support to whoever's playing Abby and be like, hey man, some of us aren't crazy about the character, but there is some value. Even me who is still mixed on the game and the character, I did find some values in her and connecting with her. I did. I will admit to that. Um, and speaking of the non-linear stuff that they did with the game, I feel like it might drive new audiences crazy if they follow it beat to beat the nonlinear way. Because that's an issue that I've had. I've told you before that like the back and forth and how identical the back and forth is to the to Ellie and Abby is what drove me nuts because of pacing wise. Not just the story. Neo and Haley Ross, they chose to write the story and they have to live with that. But the pacing is what threw me off a little bit by the time I got halfway through the game. So I feel like I wouldn't be surprised how much. I don't want to bet this. How much you want to bet that the first scene is young Abby running through the fields, and we pull out and we see her dad, and we see Salt Lake City Hospital, and it's just like cuts to the intro, and it's like that's all you need to know of like where we're going already.
Yeah, I feel like for this to be broken up, no matter what, into 2 different seasons to cover all of the second game.
Yes.
You, from a storytelling standpoint, there are certain threads of just even Ellie. Some of the scenes from those flashbacks are instrumental to understand scope of the depths of Ellie and Joel's relationship.
Yes.
Like some of the most beautiful scenes come from those, and some of the most heartbreaking as well. So I think that they're gonna have to do it that way. I said it even when we were watching. I was like, oh, they're gonna definitely keep it linear and just go until the 5-year gap. There's no way they can't. But I think for this character specifically, you see her here in this small little shot, like she's all bulked up, but you don't see her when she's a
kid
before her tragedy begins.
There's a reason why she bulks up like that.
Exactly. And I think that it's going to be so interesting to watch her morph into that, so that by the time we get to season 3 and she is that, it's going to make so much more, I'm not going to say sense. I think it's going to be more understandable. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because I think the part of some of the people that have discrepancies with this is that they can't like connect with this character to accept what she's done or going to do or what her motivation. They could care less because it's already, she's the trauma. Like she's the breaking point. She's the trauma.
Yeah.
Versus I've looked at this. I played this game several different times.
God bless you.
And it's hard for me.
Yeah.
But, and this is going to be, some of you guys are probably going to come and cook me. I can't blame her for why she did what she did. I cannot.
Given the context?
Because the only reason why I say that, and this is not, again, I'm trying to talk very non-spoiler. I think we could do this without spoiling it. If you understand the depths of how this starts, it's kind of like there have been worse things that have been done. Yeah. I'm gonna leave it at that, and I'm gonna keep it at that. But it took me time to process that. Some people don't even want to even think about it because it's too much trauma. People are not gonna sit there and think about like, oh, I don't care. we're not gonna emphasize with this. I mean, but if any of you guys seen The Color Purple, right? Mr. is not a redeemable character, right? But in this movie versus what they did the 1985 version, you get to see certain threads that make him why he is what he is. It doesn't redeem him, but it layers him to you to understand how we got here. You know what I'm saying? And I think that there's a way that they can cook this to make it work. So I think, that's my final thoughts on. I think the actress is gonna freaking kill it if she's the person that's acting it. For a while, it was Florence Pugh that was possibly gonna do it.
Pugh. For a while, even I think Katie O'Brien, the actress from The Mandalorian, and now she's in Love Lives Bleed, the new Neon A24 movie. Kristen Stewart. For a while, she was in. I was like, Katie, I support this, but also I'm worried about you because I don't want you to get flashbacks on backlash on this. And just even to touch this, that like when we say that the kid, we mean the flashbacks to the person that sets the trauma ignition in part 2. it's almost, I might be more receptive to what happens in the show than in the game. That's how much it bugged me in the game because I'm like, are you fucking kidding me halfway through? With this one, if they go almost, because it's almost a story of Sarah Connor. You see Sarah Connor in the first movie, and you see Sarah Connor in the second game. It's two complete different people, and yet it's the same person. So if she does a transition like Sarah Connor, where she had to bulk up to become almost a weapon of herself, I think people can get behind it more. I'll say this, and nothing against Laura, but because I've already seen Caitlin Dever and I really liked her as a character, and I rooted for her, and no one will save you. I might be. It's gonna be more easy for me to accept this. But then, trust me, dude. Probably when we and I want our reactions, I'm gonna flip the desk over, and I'm gonna go full Rambo. Be like, Abby.
But again, this
I
may
know.
we may not start having issues with
Till
that
season
character
3.
till season 3. I feel like that's gonna be the okie doke. People are gonna be gamers gonna be watching this like, I don't care, I don't want to see this character, and then everybody else in the world is like, oh, I like this character. Like,
I know.
I think that's gonna be so fascinating to watch Ellie grow in the 5-year gap, and also see what Abby becomes within the 5-year gap. And that's all I'm gonna say on Abby. No spoilers for me. I'm done talking about it.
And I want to say this, just from non-linear to linear, it makes sense if you're doing live action, just because people are gonna grow, and you can't go back to when they were young and film stuff unless they already filmed stuff. You just can't do that. If Bella's already hitting the gym, if whoever's playing Abby is already hitting the gym, it's just like you can't go back 4 years to do that. Like it'll we'll notice it age wise, and also how they play up the physicality of where they're at in the life.
Oh, there was one other thing that I was going to bring up because I was reading it
Bring
while
it
I was
up.
going and looking through the pictures.
Do it again. Do it.
So a lot of people don't know it, but Caitlin actually auditioned for Ellie. And she honestly, if you look at her through this picture that we got here, she looks like a dead ringer of the Ellie from the game.
Yeah, you look at that. Yeah.
So I think it'd be so much more meta if she actually does get cast, and she's just like going toe to toe. But yes.
And also a little fun fact for people who don't know, Caitlin Dever is already part of the Naughty Dog family. Do you know this?
Uncharted? No.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. I was like,
she is Nathan Drake's, and I think Elena as the character. Yeah, Elena Drake's their daughter.
Yeah.
And I remember the first notion of anything Last of Us was in Uncharted 4. We were like, oh, what does this mean? So it's kind of poetic that she's still in the Naughty Dog family, and I'd be happy for her, but I'm also like just worried because Storm's coming.
Yeah.
Let's talk about one more thing before we wrap up. The cool thing for us fans who knew the game for season 1 was the stuff that we didn't know we were getting that was already semi-developed for the first game, but we just never got it because of timing and budget. I think I've told you, we talked about this in the podcast probably, but do you know this story that was cut off from the game, Sam?
I think you talked about the Tess and Joel story. Is that what that is, right?
No, you're almost there. So this image is of a character that got cut out from the story of part 2 that was connected to Joel. So in part 2, initially, again, this is just from what I heard from the making of and videos, that Joel was supposed to have almost a girlfriend in part 2 that would have been from another town, I think, that would have come to when there's the dance in the game, that was connected to Joel's life. And that not only was just Ellie part of his life and Tommy and Marie, but he had found somebody special along the way.
Oh, wow.
The character's name is Esther. That was the initial idea for Esther. Would you want to see this if they go full on? Like, I would love to see that just dynamic, just because it's different than what we got in the game, and
So I think that if we're going, if they go the route that I hope they're going, which is the 5 year gap,
mhm,
yes,
yeah,
anything goes. Like I want you to wow me. I want you to use this as opportunity to really truly grooming the story progressionally. Because I mean, yeah, more action is always cool, but I want you to kind of help me add to what I've already experienced. You know what I mean? I think it's a really good opportunity. Like even though the second game is to me, one of the most groundbreaking games I've ever played. There's so much that they can still expand between the first game and the second. So I think that this would be a really good one if they went that route. So yeah, I would be for it for sure.
I agree. Um, let's see what else we covered. Part two remaster. We covered the Emmys.
Oh, there's one other thing. Hold on, let me pull it
All right.
up. Because I guess we got to talk about it because it's sad. It's pretty sad, and I don't know what happened. Where is it? Where is it? Where's the stupid picture at? I think I downloaded it. There it is.
So poor Pedro injured his arm.
Yeah.
Don't know. We talked about it in the back room. They're like, is this for Gladiator 2 or is this have they already started shooting um season 2 and whatnot? We don't know and that. So hopefully he's okay about it. I don't think that has to do anything with Abby. But yeah, hopefully Pedro Pascal from Bottles and Bricks. Hopefully have a speedy recovery, and it'd be kind of funny. This is connected to like feels Last of Us.
He's like getting into character. He's just like he doesn't even have a broken arm. He's just getting into character, getting ready. So now I do suspect that this had to do with his filming with Gladiator 2. It's just unfortunate because he is playing Mr. Fantastic. He's still the Mandalorian. He's still Joel. And I mean, he's in a lot of different major pictures as well. But it's kind of like right here, this picture is taken straight from the Golden Globes, which is going on right now. So matter of fact, I just thought about it. Man, is he up for any nominations at the Golden Globes? I can't remember. Um, but yeah, I do think it definitely had to do with a scene that he was probably. I don't think it had anything to do with The Last of Us though. I really don't. But it's
I
just
agree.
unfortunate. I just want to give him best wishes and prayers that
Get
he has a
better,
speedy recovery.
Pedro.
Yeah.
And if you ever see this, we'd love to have you on the podcast. Just saying it.
Oh no, Neil, we want you, sir. Jarrell Alexandra has called your name out and said,
Oh
"I
yeah,
have to talk to this man."
yeah. Folks, one of my goals this year, and I'm gonna say this now that we're recording. One of my goals is that Sam, me, Jorel, and some of the other fellow friends of ours who are Last of Us fans, if we could probably meet up in person and do a recording, all of us in the same room, in a very Last of Us themed location, I think would be magical and spectacular. And I can't promise we'll nail them this year, but one thing I'm going to push a lot for is that, and to the PR people involved at Naughty Dog or HBO, I'm sorry, but it's just the will in me that I'm gonna be bugging people. Be like, listen, we'd love to talk to these people. We'd love to talk to the prop masters, to the makeup people, to Neil, to Craig, to the actors, to the actresses, to Gustavo Santolaya and his crew. We'd love to talk to people behind the games and the show of The Last of Us, and maybe hopefully down the line we can maybe get some news of where Naughty Dog is in in the gaming realm, because I believe if I'm incorrect, this year will be the 40th anniversary of Naughty Dog as a studio. It'd be the 40th anniversary of Naughty Dog. So for the celebration of the 40th year, if I'm correct, I could expect that they'll probably drop some big news on us, maybe around summertime of like what's next for Naughty Dog. Are we gonna bookend Last of Us and do part three, or are we giving a new games, new IP? We don't know, but I'm excited for this year just to be like, all right, for concerning the podcast, it worked. I love the dynamics. Now we should just expand on it, much like not the same, but it's expanding like what part 2 did. We should do for the podcast. Just go to somewhere in Oregon or somewhere in Seattle where it's raining one night and just record a podcast there and be like, listen, in the game, this went down. Now let's speak about it. But that'll be it for this episode. This first episode of 2024, folks. If you bother checking this out, thank you so much for it. We're just two survivors, tourists who love this franchise and love sharing our enthusiasm and having people on the show to share the enthusiasm with. Sam, thank you so much for joining me today. Please tell the folks, where can people find you?
Yeah, so you can follow my handle. Social media is super SEL0320, and pretty much everywhere on TikTok, YouTube. I mean, not YouTube. TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, all the works. But you can find us primarily on Team JVS, JVS Media Productions. You can go to teamjvs.com. You can go to YouTube, type in Team JVS. Everywhere else, the same thing. For social media, we've got interviews, discussions, film festivals, all the works. It's been a crazy 2023, and it's about to be even crazier 2024. So go and check us all out.
Beautiful. Yes, folks, even last was concerning. He did a playthrough for part 2 that's on his channel. So if you're interested to see how it went down for him, go check it out. I highly, highly recommend it. So it's one of the first times I realized, he and I like the same thing. Cool. Let's talk about it. You can find me at Ronan Unchained on YouTube, on Twitter, on Instagram. You might see a new username on Twitter or Instagram concerning this podcast. So keep an eye out for that, of more coverage for this show and the games and the franchises. Yeah. So like I always say, folks, to the edge of the universe and back. Endure and survive.